Okay, so we'll move on to the penultimate tab now, which is the contacts area of Xero. So once again, you've got to drop down here. The top option will take you to all of your contacts, or you can pick to see just customers or suppliers. And in my case here, I've got another couple of options, and I'll explain a little bit later how we've got to those. So for the moment, I'll just go into all contacts. And one important point of note here is that Xero defines somebody when you enter them in the system as just a contact. With some desktop applications like QuickBooks and MyOb, when you enter somebody into the system, you have to define whether they're a customer or a supplier. And in some cases, you can have fun if someone is both and have to rename or change the spelling of one so they don't clash. In Xero's case, when you enter someone in, they become a contact. And then if you choose to invoice them, they become a customer. If they invoice you, they become a supplier, or they can be both as well. So just be aware of that. In this case, that's why we have 75 contacts, but only 23 customers and 22 suppliers. So the additional difference of about 35 will be those people that we've set up in the system, but we haven't yet billed them and they haven't yet billed us. Just one important little thing to be aware of there, because that quite often trips people over when they start using the system. So from here, I can obviously click through these tabs to see just particular groupings of people, or I can click on the buttons and I can, for example, see just those contacts that begin with the letter B. You'll notice here that I can select customers and I can add them to a particular group, or I can add new groups here. So in this case, that's how I've got these contractors and support clients here. I've created them as a group, and then I've added contacts to that group. A side note here as well, you can invoice groups together. So for these support clients, rather than creating 10 invoices, I can create a group invoice and send it out to all of them. But for that to work, I have to be billing them exactly the same amount. I can't produce one invoice and then amend it for individual clients. So that's only appropriate in certain specific circumstances. So up the top here, I can import or I can export my customer list, or contact list I should say. Same goes, as I said before, you can import customers in, but they have to be in a fairly specific format. So if you trip over that at all, feel free to get in touch with me and I'm happy to help out where I can. But it's usually to do with Excel formatting and converting from another file. If I click on Add Contact here, I just flip through to another page and I have a usual array of information that I can enter into here. I'm just going to enter some information in now as an example, and then I'll go through some of the things to be aware of. Okay, so having entered some information in here, you can now see where most of these fields will play through. One little point of note I've just realized, I've got these little tag markings on the side of my fields. That's just a browser plugin I have for remembering my passwords and personal information. So if you don't see them on your Xero, don't panic. I just suddenly thought I better mention that. So as I go down, the top section is all fairly self-explanatory. You just fill in the contact details, whether they're a customer or supplier. Further down the bottom, we've got tax information we can put in, a discount amount that will default onto all invoices and bills. As it notes here, though, you can override it if for a particular invoice or bill they're not getting that discount. Currency option here, and you'll remember when we looked into the settings, we spoke about currency being only available on the large package for Xero, so you may not see this option here. Batch payments information, if you are going to make multiple payments at a time, you can put a customer or supplier's bank account numbers in here. And again, there's a little question mark help icon if you want to know some more about batch payments. Invoice settings for branding, as we looked at the beginning, and some default due dates. Finally, at the bottom, you can enter a Xero network key. This relates to the setting area that I mentioned but didn't look at earlier, where if I have a customer that I bill, I can put their network key in here if they're on Xero, and then I can send the bill or invoice straight into their system rather than having to email or print it off. So that's as much information as I need here. I'm going to save that contact back. So with everything in there now, I'm in the contact. I can edit information if I need to. I can map the address. If I've put a Skype detail in, I can call straight through on Skype, or I can go to their website. In this case, I've entered the contact information and I'm done. So I'm just going to go back to the main area. So that covers off most of the information about contacts. So there's only a couple of little things to be aware of there, but they can trip people over. So if you have any further queries, feel free to put them in the box on the side of the video here. Otherwise, we'll move on and go through the next area.